Hello. Yeah, well, the EuroStack. Before we come to the EuroStack, I maybe want to lead us why it's important to talk about it right now. We see a dangerous concentration of power, especially in the digital sphere. A number of small tech billionaires, I could name them, but I don't think they are worth it. Lead this world right now, and they lead that democracy is under pressure. And around 9 months ago, you asked me to be part of a group that writes this paper about the EuroStack, but I couldn't, and I'm so sad about that. But the good thing is, the bad thing first is that we didn't talk since then that much. So I have a lot of questions about the EuroStack right now.
We have 30 minutes.
I think I have more questions than 30 minutes. But the first question maybe is not about the EuroStack at all. It's more about digital sovereignty. Because if we look into the world, we see that Europe is dependent. And now everybody talks about digital sovereignty. And I think there are also dangerous concepts behind that words. So what is your understanding of it? Could you explain that to us, please?
Okay, hi everyone. It's great to be here, and great concept because I can't see anything and also I can't hear anything. So I guess this is, they're testing the speakers very strongly here at Republica. I'm very happy about that. Let's start from digital sovereignty, because I think at the moment you probably feel this word is everywhere. And you wonder, is this, what does it really mean? And is this just a slogan that we see in, coalition agreements, that we see in our government manifestos, that we see basically, I think, everywhere at the moment? But are we serious about it, what it is? And I want to start from a little story here, because I think many of you possibly know me as the Chief Technology Officer of the city of Barcelona. And I've been doing that job in 2016, I started, which is basically a long time ago. I have to say, sometimes it feels really, long ago. And my agenda for the city of Barcelona was actually named a city's agenda towards technological sovereignty. And that was like 10 years ago. And by sovereignty at that point, I really didn't mean only state sovereignty. What we meant was really popular sovereignty. It was people's sovereignty and citizen sovereignty. And I think this is, for me, maybe the most important point to convene here, that sovereignty is a concept that needs to be understood as shared, a shared sense of sovereignty, a democratic sovereignty, which means really people first, democracy first, but also that agency and power must be shared. I also think, though, that there is a very new component to the digital sovereignty discourse or debate. And the thing is that in Europe, we have been very slow in recognizing that when we talk about critical technologies and infrastructures, like the cloud, like networks, like data centers, like AI models, like data in itself, those are not just markets. They're not just market trends, but they are instruments of geopolitical power. And I think we have been very slow in recognizing how concentrated the power is in digital technologies, how those infrastructures are militarized and weaponized in the current, trade war, in the current economic nationalism, Trump style, with export control, with weaponization of supply chains. I think it has become much more clear for all of us at the moment what it means to have undersea cables that are under attack, under sabotage, you know, in the North Sea or in the Mediterranean Sea, or what it means to have Ukraine, which is connected at the moment in a hot war in the center of Europe by Starlink, which is basically the satellite of Elon Musk. So if Elon Musk decides to shut off Starlink, Ukraine goes dark. And of course, I mean, I am just listing all of the possible problems that make us understand that we cannot afford to be a digital colony. And if you want, I get into this question because I think at the moment, and that's where the EuroStack actually our work starts. If we look at where Europe is, yeah, you can go on. I mean, those images are just for you if you haven't read the report because it's 130 pages, so not everyone really wants to actually look into the details. But I think it's pretty important to understand when we say Europe is dependent on foreign technologies, what we actually mean. We have 80% dependency on all digital services that we're using. Our cloud systems belong to 3 US big tech companies. 70% of the cloud market in Europe is controlled by 3 big tech US companies. The AI models that we use, 70% are made in the US, and China is catching up. I finished with the numbers, which means that all the AI models are trained on foreign data sets, actually. And then we depend on critical components like microchips from basically Asia, which is Taiwan and South Korea, which are also places where there is intense geopolitical rivalry. So, yeah, and can I add the number?
Yeah,
before I give
please
you back
add
the
the
word?
number, Francesca.
90% of the software we use in our basically public service, 90%. 90, which also involves, of course, our operating system on our mobile phone that give access to all the data we use, which also means public hospitals, schools, our cities, are actually owned by one company. Can we name them? Microsoft. The only company I want to name here, because it's actually striking. So we are, at the moment, critically dependent. And my worry is that with the acceleration of AI infrastructure and the trends we see today, we not only can become more vulnerable, but increase dependencies and vulnerabilities that are going to be very critical to our not only national security, but in particular to our democracy.
Thank you, Francesca. I can't really. Maybe you try. And I think after the first question,
I mean, this is actually nice.
Yes, it's nice.
Yes.
Yeah, so you did it,
proud.
but
Johnson
I think we have to be a bit slower because my first question.
Do I have to be slower?
No.
She says no, it's fine.
My first question was about digital sovereignty, and by my first question, everyone can see that this is a topic of your heart. So my quick summary is that digital sovereignty is about the people and about the question who decides in the end. So not that a single tech billionaire can decide to put off some satellites.
Very few.
Very few, yeah. And this is what digital sovereignty is about, that we in a democracy as a society have the power to decide. So
and built. I mean, I think this is a point that I want to make very clear. And build the technologies that we need to underpin critical services of our economy and society. Because my real point is really you cannot regulate what you don't control, and you cannot defend what you don't build and own.
Yes.
Which is,
so my second question is how the EuroStack can support the as an approach to support Europe to become digital sovereign. So what's the idea? Maybe you can you came up with the numbers, and the question now is what do we need to do tomorrow, and what actually are the layers again of the EuroStack?
Well, the layers, you can see them here. I think the basic concept of the EuroStack is what I'm saying now, that Europe has been very busy, in particular in the last years, thinking about how we regulate this. And we created all this big regulatory framework. Some of it, I think we can all defend in this room, you know, to give us more freedom, information, self-determination, more ability to be in control, democratic control. But I think it is very clear that at this moment where we are really in the middle of a huge geopolitical battle, again, we are not going to be able to control and to regulate what we cannot build and design, because otherwise we are going to be basically regulating a world we don't understand anymore, based on infrastructure we haven't been designing and built, which are underpinned by laws that we didn't write, that obey to values that we do not agree with. And this is what's happening at the moment. So I think the EuroStack is basically a way and a plan to basically revert the tendency. And the tendency is, again, monopolization. I think we are caught in a struggle between techno-nationalism and digital authoritarianism. And this is the US-China trade or cold tech war that we are living in. There is a trend of weaponization of supply chains and militarization by states of this very infrastructure that you see here. And by the way, we frame it as a stack because we think that monopolization and vertical control at the moment is really key if you analyze what's happening with AI infrastructure. And the interference that you can have, I mean, democratic interference, as we have seen, for example, during the European elections, where, you know, only if you control, for example, the data, European citizen data, in a social media, in a social network, you can actually interfere in democratic elections. So basically, if we are not serious about building an alternative, what we call a European alternative for technological sovereignty, at this point we will end up with Elon stack, not with a European democratic, shared, open source, accountable technology stack, which actually means that we can decide, you know, what kind of technologies we want to have running our hospitals, running our cities, running our education system. This is about the democratic model of Europe. So again, I don't really want to make it a technological debate here. We can debate all the layers and where we are dependent and what is our strengths. And I think, obviously, if you read the report, you can get there. But I think the radical blueprint that we are suggesting is a way to retake basic, democratic control. We could start, for example, now there is a big debate in Germany how to build the sovereign cloud. And the sovereign, yeah?
And the Deutschland
And the Deutschland stack. I wasn't very happy about calling it a Deutschland stack. I have to declare it. When I saw that they turned the EuroStack into Deutschland stack, I was like, no. This is really not the kind of, because it sounds a bit nationalistic in a kind of a German flavor sense, and that's not what we are proposing. What we are proposing is exactly a, interoperable European open source democratically controlled infrastructure. But I think the key building blocks, without going to the very, the most difficult part, for example, building AI chips or building, a European Starlink, we can go to more simple things. How about we start controlling the digital ID system of Europe, of Germany, which means of Europe. We make it privacy enhancing, and we link it to a privacy enhancing digital euro underpinned by data commons, which means that our data are controlled by us as a democracy, and we do not send our data to the US, because at the moment this is a problem for democracy. So actually a little bit of data localization regime and a data commons or a data trust underpinned by a sovereign cloud with digital ID and digital euro. I think this should be the Deutschland stack, but let's don't call it like that. Let's call it a European, sovereign, interoperable, democratic technology stack for the people.
I think between the lines you mentioned projects from the past where we try to build infrastructures in Europe. What can we learn from maybe the projects that failed or that maybe failed? They are still going on.
Yes, I mean, I think we can learn a lot from what failed. I think for me, one of the critical points is that we actually need to do this as a European project. I certainly believe that after the creation of the euro and possibly the single market, the EuroStack, if we get to do it, is the single most important project that Europe has ever done, because it's basically the fundamental critical infrastructure that underpins a modern democracy. And so I think one of the problems we have is that we don't have coordination, and we keep doing this kind of national state, very, industrial policy, a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there. We do a little bit of cloud, a little bit of chips. Then we give 20 million to a sovereign tech fund. I mean, guys, they don't need 20 million. They need at least 1 billion. I mean, let's say this. Because if we're serious about having open source critical infrastructure, I mean, okay, in our report we say we need, as Draghi, by the way, as Professor Draghi, we say we need 300 billion in 10 years. We want to start with 100 billion in 5, I'm also okay. Is it too much? You want to start with a 1 billion sovereign tech fund, which becomes 5 and 10 billion in 6 years? I'm also okay. But don't give it 20 million, because this is not serious. So that's where we fail, where we have no commitment, and we say we want digital sovereignty, but then we don't do enough, we don't invest enough. And by the way, this is not only the money. Let me say, I mean, the talent problem, which usually I don't so much insist on talent, but it's really time that we understand that the technologies, yes, that are built by big tech. If you look at, for example, some of the best privacy-enhancing technology, cryptography, like privacy and security technology here, is built by our professors that are coming out of the universities and research centers in Germany, by the way, many of them, or in Switzerland, or in Spain, or in Italy. Those really great researchers and talented developers, where do they work? They are building the AI for the US companies which are making these tech oligarch billionaires. Instead of coming here to build a democratic project for public interest, to create the fundamental infrastructures we need here. So we do have a talent problem, because we need to get these talented people well paid here and give the possibility to actually build these technologies, which is also a question of culture. It's a question of culture. So if we transform this type of culture, we put enough investment, we create, spaces like these ones where you can have a conversation between the research centers, universities, industries, policymakers, and also citizen labs, like you do here, then maybe we get the EuroStack done. But we have to be serious about that, because if you look at the past failures, this is part of the problem. And I mean, if I may say, Robert, one other thing. At the beginning, I said, stop treating this as a market problem. And I want to say it again. Like, behave as a geopolitical actor. I mean, we have to start behaving strategically about this. As a geopolitical actor, but not if we want to, as Europe, and not if only we want to build the EuroStack, if we want to save democracy. Because at the very core of this project, there is the need of actually, making sure that we do not move away from the democratic project. Because if you have a techno-oligarchy, post-democracy system running critical infrastructures of our life, I think we have a massive problem.
So let me summarize how to get to the EuroStack is not only a technological issue, it's more about commitment and culture. I think that is part
Yeah.
Missing something, or it's too
a political issue, maybe.
Political
yes.
issue. Okay.
I think it's.
But you are touring through Europe, telling all the leaders in other countries about the EuroStack. What do they say?
Well, I think, at the moment, there is a lot of backing for this kind of projects, at least from, critical member states. As you know, Germany has it in the coalition agreement, which means, now we have to see how the government wants to implement this. And I think it will be very important that they get it right in implementing this project. The French government is behind that. I will actually go at the beginning of June in France, and they have a massive event with the real industrial ecosystem in France, talking about how do we build sovereign democratic infrastructures. The Spanish government is behind. And more. We have 200 industries which subscribe to the EuroStack. And by the way, I think, of course, the industry has its own part to do here. And this is not, I think we want to be on one side very clear that we are not in the same race as the US and China. I think, we hear this all the time. We are in the AI race. I do not think we are in the same race.
What is the race then?
Our race is to build a third way that is not techno-nationalism again, and is not the Silicon Valley techno-oligarchic project, but is also not a digital authoritarian project, yes, that we see building up very strongly and very fast in China. And this is our race. The race is that, for example, if you look at the built-up, infrastructure built-up of AI, the investment that's going in data centers for AI at the moment, it is extraordinary, exponentially higher. The extraction of critical raw materials, of water, of energy, it's skyrocketing. The amount of energy that those infrastructure consume. This is really the biggest industrial, the biggest factories project in the Industrial Revolution. It's huge. And now, of course, the US government with the Trump administration is weaponizing this infrastructure, tying their export control chips, the cloud monopolies, and the AI models, in order for us to get even more dependent from the system. And they're doing it in Saudi Arabia, they're doing it in the Emirates, in Qatar, and so on. So I think it's really the moment for Europe to step up and say, yes, we are building AI capabilities for public needs, for industries, for society, democracy. We start from our strengths, Maybe it's healthcare, maybe it's advanced manufacturing, maybe it's giving better public services. Hello, Germany, we need better public services in the digital world. Hello? Yes. So we have a lot of priorities. We start from our priorities. We built the technologies that are aligned with our laws, our fundamental rights, because they are not going to obey to our laws. This is also something we know now. So we start from that, and I'm sure that we build the infrastructures that we need, and that's not to compete with the rest, but to be competitive and innovate on our own terms.
So we have here a big audience, and before we come to one or maybe two questions, depends on the first person, I have a last question for you, because maybe there are some politicians in the audience here, or will see the video afterwards, or maybe some people from ministries are here. So what would you write into their homework notebooks to the new German government? How should they support becoming the EuroStack real?
Well, I guess I said a lot of things already. For example, in our report, beyond the investment, I made it clear that I think investment should be there. I think we have underestimated the needs for investment in critical infrastructures. Again, hello Germany, we need better infrastructures. It is very clear to me that if you want to have a modern society for people and the planet, you need to invest in critical infrastructures, and those infrastructures need to be European, yes? And the digital part is a very, very important component of that. We say that I think starting from public procurement and change this nightmare of being able to operate efficiently if you are a government is what we need to do. We want to be, using the public leverage, to basically acquire and buy European democratic, sovereign, interoperable, open source solutions right now. Because otherwise, we keep investing billions into the US hyperscalers. We're going to have maybe a choice with Chinese stack, yes? But we're not building our own capacity.
Yes.
So I think public procurement, the sovereign tech fund, maybe a sovereign tech agency like the Sprint you have here, but for Europe. Yes, I think this will be a very important project. And then I want to make clear that this is not a technocratic project top-down. I mean, you are talking to a person that has devoted more than 10 years of her life working with cities in Europe and across the world. Why? Because I think citizens and cities have to be part of this. As I said before, open source communities, cities, citizens, public hospitals, schools. I mean, Jesus, this is a society project. This is not only a top-down technocratic industry project.
So there are two questions left. One from Anke. Sorry, we have only time for Anke today. I saw her first. Behind you, Anke, on the right shoulder, there's a microphone. And maybe you can just go directly after.
Thanks a lot. I was 8 years in the Bundestag for digital policy for the left party, and we discussed a lot the topic of digital sovereignty, but we also encountered what I would call digital or sovereign whitewashing. For example, the so-called sovereign cloud of DDoS, which is a cloud based on Microsoft Azure, but operated by SAP, a German company, on their premises. But of course, it needs updates from Microsoft, and those can be just switched off if Trump wants so. So what do you say about those DDoS cloud type of sovereign technology, and how can we fight this?
Well, what do I say is that that's not sovereignty. It's, I think, very simple. And to be honest with you, I think this is not something we can do again, this kind of sovereignty washing. But I have to say, and I hope, now, what I say now, it will be backed by real action. I was, 2 days ago, I was in a meeting at Heilbronn.
Heilbronn, yes.
Heilbronn. And I had a look at the Stackit, which is the Schwarzdigit product. And I think this is moving in the right direction. Oh. And I hope now this will be backed by real action. And to be honest with you, also seeing some of the German industries stepping up on the question of sovereignty and being very clear about the geopolitical, national security and democracy threats that we are seeing now, I think the trend that you're saying is changing. I think that we are now starting to see, and I see it also in the European Parliament. There is much more action saying, for example, we can't, do sending our data to the US, so the free trade of data, because, this is actually a threat for democracy. We maybe have to implement data localization regimes. We have to have sovereign cloud. I think this conversation is really rapidly evolving. So I'm pretty positive about that.
Thank you, Francesca, and thank you to the audience. And I would be really happy to give Francesca
we have no time for
a final applause. No, we have no time for final questions. Just a big applause for Francesca. It's so easy to interview you because everything you say comes from your heart, and I think one sees and hears it.
Thank you.